Okay, so we're at the Ufer studios at the courtyard, and we decided to do it outside instead of a room. Yeah, I've been working here on the premises for like almost since 2010, so 6 years. First in the Tanzbüro, which is the office as a rental office up here, and it's for the complete dance scene. And I changed position or job like on the 1st of July, and I went into together with Barbara the management of the Ufer studio. So that's a complete new fresh start for me. The position at the Tanzbüro should not be like for a lifelong time, but it should be somehow captured within the time frame of 5 to 10 years. And I see that quite important because I think it's an open structure as Tanzbüro with a certain working field, but it's always keen on getting new ideas, stuff like that. And I think nobody should stay on that seat for too long, so just in order to get fresh perspectives and stuff like that. Working at the Tanzbüro is really interesting, but you get into a couple of repetitive things, which are especially working on like political agenda, where you kind of start feeling the repetition. And if you don't have that spark anymore, and like also believing that you can change everything, because that's never going to happen, I didn't want to prolong that for too long. I didn't have that tiredness yet, but it was the right point of change. I think as an institution, the Tanzbüro offers quite much to the dance scene. It always kind of stays in the background because there is a lot of strings that it kind of starts and pushes and holds together, but it's never like the real front head of it. For me, there were like important agendas of bringing people together and in a live exchange, because at a certain point we experienced that just communicating via web, mail, blah blah blah, kind of brings a lack into people who want to actually meet and exchange, because they're everywhere all the time and then they come back and then they have no place to kind of start. So this was one important aspect, to get like people really close together, just sometimes with a strict thematic or agenda, and sometimes just as an open meeting basically. I think for the service part, it's quite essential for the dance scene, because it's a small structure, but it covers a lot of just bringing visibility to the dance scene, to have like a spokesman for the dance scene within all the Senate and structural and political institutions, and also kind of representing it to the Ausland if somebody comes, stuff like that, giving an overview. Yeah, I mean, this is, and one thing is what was always important for me at the office was kind of to install some political thinking within dancers and choreographers, which I find very special, because I think there is a strong political thinking, but not maybe in the real pragmatic sense of real politics, but in a more in the sense of like polis and society, and in a more overall thing. And it took me all the years to find out why is it so different within the choreographic thinking than in the other art disciplines. I think like theater is much more stabilized and much more outspoken in its pragmatic political agendas. And why doesn't it really work that much in the choreographic field? And I mean, I have totally no complete answer to that, but of course, I mean, some of the issues are that people are working in 2, 3, 4, 5 countries at the same time, and it's much more nomadic. I think it's also, I don't know, maybe also about having this other understanding of political, because I think the Berlin dancing is very political. It comes out of a more general concern with society, with bodily, with interaction, with practices. And I always had the impression that going one-to-one through like the real Stadtpolitik, through this politics of the city, is too boring for everyone. And so it was always interesting for me to kind of like induce that virus on the real pragmatic sense as well, not losing the other one more overall sense. Every performer, choreographer who turns around the world has a lot of good ideas to bring back, also in the pragmatic sense, yeah. But seeing that the dry outcome, and maybe also sometimes the disappointment, because not much has moved forward for the Berlin dance scene. I mean, there was a lot of gains, but also there's a lot of still missing spots. Maybe the delusion or the disappointment that nothing has happened so fast, and they have seen other places where it did happen faster, or where there are instruments that are more suitable to the practice. Kind of made them maybe a bit reluctant on pushing it forward here. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible and that people don't need it, because you said, I know one of the things is to have more this local anchorage and have this locality, and also a sense of home and coming back and being able to work here on a continuous level. I think this nomadic part is also brought by need, not just by wish also, but also extremely by need, yeah. And so it's just, but it's also hard to kind of push it forward, the continuous pragmatic political talk, if people are away all the time again. And just, I think the Tanzbüro tried to kind of give this continuity together with the ZDB, just by collecting single individual voices, even if they're then gone again. Yeah, I mean, if you look at what artist came to Berlin and left Berlin again, I mean, we had like constantly great brain loss. But still, they kind of pushed something at the beginning. They started something at the beginning, and you can like pick up those little lines and continue them to the next generation. It's not a next generation, but it's new people coming. Sure. Yeah. Even though if you spoke to them individually all the time, the interest was great and the collaboration was great. But as a whole complete scene body, it did not really exist anymore. It kind of lost. I think that was really strong between 2000, 2003. There was like this real upheaval in the dance scene, where all the other art disciplines didn't have that yet. I think the dance scene in Berlin was actually very strong on its political agenda at the beginning of 2000, because there's a lot of things that broke away and stuff like that, and it became really visible in that. Then I think this kind of fractured up a bit, splittered up a little bit. So I would say our interaction, or what people ask from Tanzbüro, was more on a individual agenda, and we kind of tried to filter out the comments in it and then kind of push that forward. I would say that was part of the scene, because I a lot of times have the problem on defining what is the scene, and visually speaking, I think there's a bunch of people that kind of also seem very close and appear everywhere basically. And then there's millions, not millions, but thousands that kind of don't really dock onto that are a bit on the outside. Now we're like on the inside and the outside of the scene, and it sounds always like winner and loser or not, and this is very hard, because I think this multiplicity, this plurality of the scene is always there. The perspective that there is an in-group, I don't really know that's true, but I know a lot of people feel it. I'm afraid that this common always only happens when there is a danger, and obviously, I mean, the Berlin art scene in general is in danger, basically. I mean, there's a lot of things breaking away, there's a lot of consolidation on one side where you can't really break institutions up anymore and stuff like that. So obviously when things narrow and other aspects of freedom crash away, then there is, I think that's always a strong point of finding out the common interest and acting as a common strive rather than just looking for the individual needs and functions momentarily. So that definitely, I think, comes up stronger again. Also, I think the self-understanding of the dance scene now goes kind of a bit more back into let's help each other in sharing. I feel that stronger in the last 2 to 3 years than in the period before, where everyone kind of was happy or unhappy with its own stuff. I think these ground things where people realize, okay, we're never going to get into this funding system, we're never going to get to that step, we're never going to get into that institution, theater, blah, blah, blah. This kind of opens up new ways of collaborating together again. Okay, I had one moment where I was really disappointed because, okay, in general, when we brought people together and talk about situation and their conditions and stuff like that, really soon everybody starts lamenting, I call it. I mean, everything is bad, blah, 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 this is missing, and in general, all the same topics come up all the time. So one time we did a meeting where we said, okay, you have like really 1 minute of saying what's bad, and you have another 5 minutes of formulating your utopia. And I was really disappointed what the utopia was. I must really say, I mean, this is like, I understand it's hard to jump from one to the other and kind of abstract from your actual working condition or living condition. But I really was disappointed in the utopia. So sometimes one of the problems was, I think, in kind of transmitting that certain goals are really far away and you need those little steps, and those little steps are disappointing. But in the end they bring something, even though you go like 2 steps forward and 1 back. So this was a bit of a problem in communication with choreographers that wanted to change now. And I totally understand, but also kind of like keeping them with us on the longer run. I think it's important to kind of keep the dilettantism and to also maybe not strive for the vertical career ladder, because it also seems for me a very impossible thing to install, because obviously not everyone can climb that career ladder, and I don't think that's really the sense of art making. Obviously I understand that people need different working conditions and production conditions, but does it always have to be on this kind of like really pathway to blah blah blah? Yeah, this is how the funding system is constructed. It goes from emerging to mid-career to a single project to a basis, and somehow I think we need to kind of break that, at least at a certain point. I mean, we can install that or leave that structure installed, but we also need, I don't know, parallel systems or systems on the side where people can still work without having this classical career ladder. So, and we had long discussions also on what is the pathway that alumni go, and most of them come out and they want to do classical artwork on the stage, and then the steps, I mean, that's like a cliche now, but unfortunately it is true for most, and I think it has also narrowed down a lot in the last 10 years. But so you go like, okay, first you perform here, then it's Sophienseele, then it's Hau, and this is the way it goes. And then you go to this festival and you're in this network and so, and it's a very limited pathway that's opened up. And I absolutely think that we need to work on that, and that would be the solution, that there is different pathways as they have existed, I think a bit 10 years ago, or as Xavier Leroy was here, they still tried it, and they failed as well, because as you said, he left and said Thomas Lehmann to leave. But also on those side paths, because I think you can't just say, I mean, this is not the only trajectory to go this and this path of career ladder. There needs to be some structure, there needs to be some money, there needs to be some possibility also to have that, yeah. And those are the kind of the free spaces that we are losing at the moment in the city. Because, I mean, all the theaters get more narrowed down to one profile. There's a lot of theaters where you can just open the experiment falling away just because of the housing politics and housing prices in Berlin and stuff like that. So those are definitely, last fields that the dance community, I think, has to mark in order, because not everybody is going to make that ladder. Yeah. I think I wish back a couple of wilder places that are not so completely structured and fixed within itself. I mean, we played through the the house of choreographic thinking or house of dance, whatever, and that for me it's a concrete house, it's a concrete place, but it's also a way of thinking. How can people work? And I think this would be just picture of like really one big place that allows satellites to come and go, but they have kind of their bases there, and you don't need to have like this high class profile in it, but you have more of a common working ground for everyone who kind of docks on, yeah, and that kind of still allows people leaving for a year because they're producing somewhere else and coming back, but feeling kind of this base. I mean, that needs a structure, I think, and it also needs a physical place, I think. I mean, doing everything just in virtuality or just through a network and stuff like that, I think is missing out something. I think you need that really physical contact and also this common understanding of keeping a place running, which doesn't need to be induced always from the top down, but from the bottom up. But then you need really engagement, and people don't have engagement, of course, if they don't feel at home. So this would be one of the thoughts for the future. Just